7 years ago, Captain Aurora Kaine vanished in a fiery explosion, her silver jet destroyed, her name etched on a memorial wall. Everyone believed she was dead, but the truth was darker and deeper. Her death was a cover for a classified mission, one that demanded she disappear completely to dismantle a hidden enemy network. While her comrades mourned, Aurora became a ghost operative, saving lives from the shadows. Now, as a jet long believed lost roars back to life during a memorial, stunned faces watch in disbelief. Who's piloting it, and why now? The answer will shake the very meaning of sacrifice. If this story stirred something in you, if you believe silent heroes deserve to be seen, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful, untold stories to light. Let's honor those who serve in silence. Join our mission, because some heroes fly unseen. Falcon Ridge Air Base was meant to be a place of remembrance tonight, a solemn gathering beneath a heavy, silent sky to honor the fallen. But fate, as it often does, had its own agenda. Without warning, a silver jet cut through the darkness like a blade, its engines howling, shattering the reverent stillness and drowning out the murmured prayers. The sudden roar jolted the base into chaos. Shouts erupted, orders barked into radios, weapons systems powered up, and soldiers' fingers hovered, tense and trembling, over triggers. Confusion spread like wildfire. Who was flying that jet? Then came the voice over the radio, tight with fear and disbelief. Every radar screen confirmed the impossible. The call sign, the aircraft's ID. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. But there it was, etched across every display like a ghost from the past. Captain Aurora Kaine, a pilot long believed dead, her aircraft buried with her. And yet, the Iron Spectre had returned. Not in memory, not in story, but tearing through the night sky. A phantom jet piloted by a name the world had consigned to legend. Why now? Why her? And who could possibly be flying a plane that was never supposed to fly again? Long before that eerie night at Falcon Ridge, before engines screamed into silence and myths became real, there was simply a young woman with fire in her veins and dreams too vast for the ground to hold. Aurora Kaine, known by her call sign Phantom 9, wasn't born a legend. She forged herself into one, through grit, sacrifice, and the kind of resolve that either burns you up or lifts you beyond the clouds. Aurora's childhood unfolded near desolate airfields where wind swept the planes and fighter jets left white scars across the sky. While other kids played games, she'd sit in the dirt, sketching silhouettes of aircraft with oil-stained fingers, eyes fixed on the sky like it held all her answers. Her heartbeat synced with the roar of engines overhead. But passion alone wasn't enough. Not in a world that still asked women to prove they belonged in the cockpit, especially in combat. So she sharpened every edge of herself. She had to be faster, steadier, smarter. And she was. She entered the academy at the top of her class, outmaneuvered instructors in simulations, and swatted down every doubt cast her way. Her name became legend in corridors of whisper, associated not with gender, but with unshakable precision. When the call came for Phantom Talon Wing, the elite, the unforgiving, Aurora was ready. Few beyond command knew a woman had made it in, but her squadron did. Because when storms rose and missions teetered on the edge of disaster, it was Phantom 9 they followed, trusting her to bring them home. The missions she flew didn't always make the history books. Many were erased from the public record entirely, buried beneath black ink and red stamps. These were the kind of operations where failure didn't mean a headline, but catastrophe. And the world would never know, because it was never supposed to. Aurora flew those missions. Flashbacks etched across minds who served with her show her jet streaking low across jagged peaks, cloaked in night, slipping past enemy radars like a ghost. In one, she's surrounded, enemy fighters closing in, 2 to 1. Her calm voice crackles over the comms. "Stick with me. I'll get you out." And she does. Every time. But behind every moment of gallant resolve lived a woman carrying the invisible. Medals gathered dust in drawers, never mounted on walls. Recognition never truly interested her. The real weight wasn't medal. It was the crushing solitude that came with secret victories. It was knowing that her silence kept the nation safe, while no one knew how close they'd come to ruin. There were moments no metal could acknowledge, moral tightropes where orders clashed with conscience. Like the mission where she disobeyed a direct command to abort, knowing the target would strike within hours. She eliminated the threat, likely saving hundreds if not thousands. Her reward? An official reprimand buried in a folder no one would read. History remembers noise, the loud triumphs, the ticker tape. But for every parade, there are unsung acts of valor, buried beneath silence. Aurora belonged to that second truth. She never asked for recognition. She walked away from it. She didn't break the glass ceiling. She soared right past it, proving with every maneuver that brilliance has no gender. In a Phantom Talon wing, she wasn't the female pilot. She was the pilot, the one you prayed would lead when the world was falling apart. But even legends pay a price. No one saw the lonely nights after a mission when she sat at the tip of her jet's wing in an empty hangar staring into the void. No one read the unsent letters she wrote to families, trying to explain what couldn't be said. No one felt the weight of the names she carried in silence, those lost under her command. And so, when the Iron Spectre screamed across the sky that night at Falcon Ridge, it wasn't just a machine reborn. It was a story refusing to die. It wasn't a ghost chasing glory, but duty. Sometimes the dead return not because they were called, but because the mission demands it. That night would become the stuff of whispered legend. Even among Phantom Talon Wing's elite, it would be spoken of in low voices, as if saying it aloud could invoke something beyond comprehension. The mission itself, highly classified, deadly, urgent. Aurora didn't volunteer. She was chosen, because no one else could do it. The briefing was stripped of bravado, no smiles, no banter, just flickering projections, maps, and the weight of what was at stake. Intel had confirmed a devastating plot, a high-ranking enemy general orchestrating a deep spy network embedded within Allied command. The window to stop him was razor-thin. There would be no second chance. Aurora's role was clear. In her silver jet, the Iron Spectre, she would need to punch through a gauntlet of defenses, infiltrate the shadows, and complete the impossible. Again, as always. But this time the world would know she had returned. No pilot had ever made it out alive. But she launched anyway, Aurora Kaine, into the vast unknown, piloting the silver jet like a ghost tearing through the night sky. No radio contact, no escort, just her and her machine, slicing through the darkness alone. Her presence was silent, invisible, deadly. The memories of that mission flashed through her mind like lightning, moments burned into her with the weight of survival. She remembered the jet gliding just beneath the radar, engines dialed so low they sounded like a whisper. It darted between narrow canyon walls, each maneuver more precise than the last, dodging death by inches. The target lay hidden deep inside enemy territory, a heavily guarded convoy carrying something far too dangerous to be allowed through. She locked in. 2 missiles, one breath drawn, one breath let go. Then, impact. Fire exploded across the ground as the payload was obliterated. Mission accomplished. But it didn't end there. Warning screamed from her console. Enemy missiles locking on. Fighters rising fast. She was boxed in. No safe path left, or so it seemed. Her last radio transmission was delivered with startling calm. If you're hearing this, tell Talon Wing I'll see them on the other side. Moments later, fire bloomed in the distance. An eruption on the horizon. The Iron Spectre vanished in a burst of wreckage and silence. Radar flatlined. Aurora Kaine was gone. At least that's what the world believed. In truth, the explosion had been staged. Every scorched piece of wreckage meticulously planted. The entire op had a deeper layer, its real objective, to make Captain Aurora Kaine disappear without a trace, to erase her so thoroughly that even those who knew her best would never suspect the truth. A full military funeral followed, an empty casket cloaked in the flag she served, salutes snapped with sharp finality. Her mother, tears falling like rain, was handed the folded banner. Her comrades stood in tight formation, every face carved with loss. Sergeant Leo Dominguez, her mechanic, the one who made the jet feel almost alive, couldn't find words. Instead, he laid a wrench in the coffin before it was lowered, his silent vow to keep her memory alive in the engines he still cared for. Every year the base remembered her her name etched into the memorial wall. The Iron Spectre mothballed in a hangar, too sacred to scrap, too painful to display. But behind closed doors, Aurora Kaine was still very much alive. Extracted under cover of that fiery illusion, she entered the world of shadows. No longer a captain, no longer a name, just a phantom operating in silence, serving a country that would never acknowledge her missions, her scars, her service. She dismantled enemy spy networks thread by thread, piece by piece. She destroyed them from within, leaving no trail behind. She watched those she loved grieve from afar, unseen. She read her own eulogies. She visited her own grave. She became a watcher in the dark. And it's here that we must pause to understand the price that secrecy demands, not just from those who serve in it, but from those who are left behind. Sometimes a nation asks its heroes to vanish, not for medals, not for ceremonies, but for something greater, something unseen, the greater good. But what is that really? Safety, security, the ability to sleep through the night, unaware of the nightmares circling just outside the edges of the light. Aurora Kaine bore that cost alone. But so did everyone who had once been her family, her squad, her home. Families left with nothing but unanswered questions. Friends who relived that night over and over, searching for something they could have done differently. Sergeant Dominguez never gave up. Once a month, he powered up the Iron Spectre systems, oiled every joint, whispered to the jet like it could carry a message to the dead. Because hope, even when it's irrational, is nearly impossible to kill. And what of Aurora's burden? Each mission in the shadows, each glimpse of grief she wasn't allowed to ease, weighed down on her soul like lead. It wasn't just anonymity she carried, it was isolation. No letters, no reunions, no one calling her name, just the cold steel of duty fulfilled at a cost no one could ever truly measure. So when we speak of heroes, we must ask ourselves, do we only honor the ones we can see, the ones who wear medals and receive applause? Or do we also remember the unseen, the ones who are asked to surrender everything, not just their lives, but their very identities, their existence? Aurora Kaine became one of those nameless guardians, a name etched in stone, a flag folded tight, and far from the reach of recognition or reward, she stood watch in the shadows. For 7 years, she moved through the world like a phantom. Where she once soared above the clouds, she now crept through cities, deserts, jungles, hidden in plain sight. No call sign, no uniform, no home. Her missions were impossibly high stakes. She exposed traitors within allied ranks, broke down terrorist cells before they could act, intercepted weapons that could have turned cities to ash. She was a scalpel where others used hammers. Every mission, successful. Every record, sealed. Most of the time, she worked alone. The people she met in the field were strangers, contacts, spies, informants, faces gone by morning, names forgotten by nightfall. She couldn't afford trust. She didn't even own her name anymore. And that's where the story paused, but not where it ended. In the shadows, she had no name, only aliases, encrypted codes, and silence marked her existence. Yet even from across oceans, buried bunkers, or dim hotel rooms in faraway cities, she watched. She watched as Falcon Ridge Air Base honored the memory of someone they believed to be lost forever. Her. Through the grainy lens of a security feed, Aurora Kaine saw Sergeant Leo Dominguez stand stiff and solemn before the memorial wall, eyes fixed on the name carved into cold stone. Her name. Afterward, as if drawn by a ritual etched into his soul, he slipped away to Hangar 7. There, the Iron Spectre waited like a sleeping relic. He powered it on just for a few moments, not to fly, but to remember. That soft purr of the engine, it was his way of saying a prayer. In those distant places, in the echoing quiet of foreign soil, Aurora would close her eyes and picture Leo's face. She could see the years stretching across his features, the lines deepening at the corners of his eyes, the creeping silver threading through his once dark hair. He had never just been a crew chief to her. He had been more than a teammate. He had been family. And she had let him grieve a death that was never real. She had let him carry that pain because her silence meant his safety. In the isolation of her missions, during those endless, sleepless nights, Aurora's thoughts always circled back to those she had left behind. Her mother still lighting a candle in the window each night, never giving up hope. Her old squad mates, who clinked glasses in her memory each year without knowing she still walked among the living. Young pilots who spoke her name with awe, who whispered legends about her without realizing the myth was still breathing, bleeding, and fighting. And within all those memories came the guilt, unshakable and sharp-edged. If she could have voiced the storm in her head, it might have sounded like this. I see their faces every time I close my eyes. I hear their voices drifting through the static of radio channels long gone quiet. I carry the burden of their mourning because my silence protects them. But does knowing it's for their safety make the weight any lighter? They mourn a ghost, and I am that ghost, moving through a world I can no longer claim as my own. She had chosen this. She had said yes when the mission demanded she vanish, when the cause needed her to become nothing more than a shadow. She believed in what they were fighting for, in the good they could still do. But no one tells you what it feels like to disappear from the world. No one warns you how lonely it is to become invisible, how crushing the mask can become when it's not just a disguise, but a whole new identity carved from silence. She remembered one mission in Istanbul. The rain was biting against her skin, soaking her as she held the stolen briefcase tightly in one hand. The target was already down, neutralized in the dark corner of a slick alley. She had done everything right. Another catastrophe quietly prevented. Another crisis averted before the world ever noticed. And yet, when she stepped back into the safe house, there was no sense of victory, only an emptiness that swallowed her whole. Somewhere far away, she imagined Leo tending to a jet he believed would never take flight again. This was the human cost of being unseen. We honor the heroes we can see. We celebrate them with parades, decorate them with medals, etch their names in marble. But what of the ones we ask to disappear? The ones whose most courageous acts will remain locked in classified files, whose sacrifices are never spoken of aloud. Governments ask for this silence in the name of security, in the name of peace. And people like Aurora answer that call. They vanish because someone has to. But the toll is immense. For Aurora, danger had never been the true burden. She had stared down threats with calm resolve and unwavering precision. The weight was in the absence, the knowledge that the people she loved had to live with a lie, that she had to stand back and watch their grief unfold and never reach out, never speak, never comfort. She had to let them believe she was gone. Leo Dominguez carried a different kind of burden. His devotion became its own silent rebellion against time and loss. Every single month, without fail, he visited the Iron Spectre. He cleaned its panels until they shone, ran diagnostics, checked systems, changed fluids. Outsiders saw an old man refusing to let go of the past. But to Leo, it was a solemn vow. If she ever comes home, he told himself, she'll have a jet ready to fly. Years rolled by, but Leo never skipped a visit. And each time he brought the engine to life, let it rumble low and steady beneath his hands, it made him feel just a little less alone. Around him, younger pilots whispered her name with reverence. They'd reach out to touch the Spectre's cool metal as if it could channel something sacred. Some swore they could feel her presence watching over them from the shadows. Maybe they weren't wrong. In those 7 years, Aurora Kaine saved lives that would never know her face. She stopped disasters before they began. She dismantled networks of violence and conspiracy, all before their roots could take hold. And always, she bore the weight of two realities: the world she shielded and the one she could never return to. In an age where heroism is often spotlighted, packaged, and streamed, we must remember those who operate in darkness. Those who don't just risk their lives, but give up their very identity, their place in the world. Aurora Kaine had become one of those guardians, a specter by choice, a ghost forged from loyalty. Each mission she took, each quiet, hidden step she made brought her closer to a moment she could scarcely let herself hope for: the night she might return. And then, that night arrived. Darkness blanketed Falcon Ridge like a mourning veil. The memorial ceremony was winding down. Final names had been read. Salutes were crisp and heavy with meaning. Above them, stars flickered in the stillness, dimmed by sorrow and remembrance. And then it began. First came the tremor beneath the earth, a subtle vibration that made people shift and glance around. Then, the low, unmistakable rumble. The chaplain, mid-prayer, fell silent. The noise grew louder. It was not just a sound, but a declaration. A jet engine, alive and roaring. From the long-locked shadows of Hangar 7 sealed for years, a silver figure emerged. The Iron Spectre rolled onto the taxiway under the floodlights, gleaming like a ghost-made flesh. Its polished fuselage shimmered against the dark. The crowd stilled, breath caught, radios crackled with disbelief. Something was happening, something impossible. The Spectre had risen again. Unauthorized takeoff, runway 4, repeat, unauthorized takeoff. Who's flying that jet? Who cleared it? Inside the control tower, a wave of disbelief rolled over the young officers as their eyes locked onto the radar screen. An old call sign, one thought lost forever, blinked back in eerie green. Phantom 09, a code from another era, a name no one ever expected to hear again. A stunned voice broke the silence. "Sir, it's Phantom 09, it's Kaine." The controller's voice trembled as he turned to General Whitaker. Whitaker, a man hardened by war and not easily shaken, felt something cold grip his spine. His face went pale. Without hesitation, he snatched the microphone. "Unknown pilot, this is General Whitaker. Power down your engines immediately. I repeat, shut down. You are desecrating sacred ground." But the aircraft didn't slow. It glided forward with eerie calm, unbothered by the storm it had stirred. The Iron Spectre, the legendary jet, moved like a ghost refusing to remain buried. Security rushed to action. Teams scrambled to block the runway. Armed personnel took position, rifles at the ready, though their hands trembled. It wasn't just an intruder they faced. It was something more. Something half-believed, half-dreaded. A legend, risen. "Is this a sick joke?" someone muttered. "No, it's her jet. It's her," came another hushed voice. Sergeant Leo Dominguez stood frozen. His pulse thundered in his ears. He had spent years with that aircraft, memorized every bolt, every curve. He knew its song, its heartbeat. "Come on, girl. Is it really you?" he whispered, barely breathing. The jet rolled to a stop at the runway's end. Its engines wound down, fading into a heavy silence that seemed to blanket the entire base. Then, with a hiss, the canopy opened. From the cockpit rose a figure. Flight suit aged and dusted with time, helmet hiding the face. But the presence was undeniable. General Whitaker approached, senior officers in tow. His stride was crisp, full of practiced command. But behind his eyes was a maelstrom of questions, disbelief, memories. The figure paused, then slowly lifted the helmet. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It was Aurora Kaine. Older now, face marked by time, streaks of silver woven into her hair, but unmistakably her. Dominguez collapsed to his knees, overcome. The years dissolved in that moment. Whitaker stopped short, eyes locked on hers. His voice cracked through the night. "Aurora, how is this possible?" She stood at attention, saluted with sharp precision. "Reporting for duty, sir. Apologies for the entrance. Some stories deserve a little theater." His composure wavered for the first time in years. "We buried you. We mourned you." "You buried an empty coffin," she replied softly, "and a lie we had to live with." And there, under the watch of every soul on base, Aurora Kaine told the truth. The mission was never meant to end with a funeral. The explosion had been staged, a cover for what came next. She had disappeared to dismantle a hidden enemy from within. A vast network of traitors, spies, and ghosts that couldn't be hunted in the open. Her voice never trembled, but her eyes held the shadows of years lost. "I lived in the dark so others could live in the light. Every day I thought about this place, about you, about them." Whitaker shook his head slowly, emotion brimming just behind his military discipline. "And now? Why come back now?" She turned toward the memorial wall, its lights flickering softly in the darkness. "Because the mission is over, and because ghosts deserve to come home too." Dominguez's voice broke through, tears cutting lines down his cheeks. 7 years, Captain. 7 years I kept her ready, just in case." Aurora stepped off the wing and walked to him. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "I knew you would, Leo. I always knew." All around them, the base held its breath. Young pilots inched closer, eyes wide, not with fear, but awe. They weren't just witnessing a myth made real. They were seeing something more profound, proof that service can outlast even death. Because Aurora Kaine's return was more than a dramatic reentry. It was a reckoning. She shattered the illusion that duty ends when a name is carved in stone. She reminded them that some battles continue long after the bugles fall silent, that some heroes serve where no one sees, no medals, no glory, no, just quiet, relentless sacrifice. Her return forced them all to reconsider what it truly means to serve, to protect, to endure, because real guardians don't always rest. Sometimes they wait in silence, hidden until the world needs them again. Imagine it now, Aurora standing beside the Iron Spectre once more, her hand resting on its cool, familiar metal, the stars above casting their silent witness. The base held in still reverence. General Whistaker finally bowing his head. "Welcome home, Captain." And then the camera pulls back. From jet to base to the vast horizon. Aurora Kaine's legend taking flight again. Not as a ghost, but as a guardian returned. The night deepened. The roar of the Iron Spectre had faded. But its echo and what it brought back with it would never leave Falcon Ridge again. Ridge Air Base. Just moments ago, the air had been thick with confusion, fear, and disbelief. But now, that same space buzzed with something deeper. Raw wonder, stunned reverence, and the fragile flicker of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, some ghosts do come back home. General Whitaker stepped forward, his heavy boots grinding against the tarmac. His voice was low, grounded in authority, but shaded with emotion. "Captain Kaine," he said, the weight of years pressing down on each word. "After all this time, why the secrecy? And why now?" Aurora Kaine held his gaze, her stance unflinching, composed. Her voice, though soft, was unwavering. "Sir, because duty required it. That night, the explosion, the wreckage, it was all a calculated illusion. A mission buried within another mission. The threat we uncovered could only be eliminated if I disappeared. Entirely. The world had to believe I was dead. Even our own people had to believe it." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Pilots, techs, commanders, all had mourned her. They had honored her memory, toasted to her sacrifice in solemn ceremonies. And now here she stood, alive, unbroken. The impossible made real. Aurora's voice grew firmer, steady as steel. "For 7 years, I moved in silence. I worked alone, unmaking a network that had dug itself deep into our most protected ranks. 13 enemy operatives. 4 traitors within our own command. I didn't return until every threat was neutralized. Until all of you were safe." Whitaker was momentarily lost for words. His training, his command presence, it all trembled under the sudden weight of emotion. "We thought we buried you," he murmured. "We believed we had honored your sacrifice." Aurora glanced toward the memorial wall where her name was still engraved in cold stone. Her voice dropped to something more personal. "And I am honored, sir, beyond what words can capture. But now it's time to honor those who never gave up, who kept believing, who kept the flame alive." Her eyes found him, Sergeant Leo Dominguez, the man who had carried the unbearable weight of her memory through every mission, every month, every day. Leo stepped forward, visibly shaken. His hands trembled. Lines of time and pain marked his face. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked with all the years he couldn't put into words. "Ma'am, 7 years. I kept thinking, maybe I missed something. Maybe I could have saved you." Aurora stepped toward him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "No, Leo, you did everything right. More than right. You kept her ready. Every month I knew you were still there. Somehow I felt it. That's why I came home tonight." Tears blurred Leo's eyes, but his lips curled into a small, genuine smile. "Every time I fired her up, I said she'd fly again. I just never imagined you'd be the one flying her." Aurora gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "It was always going to be me," she said simply, turning back to face the crowd. Officers, pilots, techs, civilians, all stood silent, their eyes fixed on her, their hearts stunned open. I didn't return for applause, Aurora said, her voice ringing across the tarmac like a vow. I came back because the mission is complete, and now it's time to rebuild, to mentor, to give back, to help this base and this family heal from the scars my secrecy left behind. Young pilots looked at her as if witnessing a legend step out of a myth. But they didn't just see a warrior. They saw a guide, someone who had survived the fire and returned with wisdom forged in silence. Whitaker cleared his throat, his composure slowly returning. You'll have every resource, Captain, and every ounce of respect that's due to you. Aurora nodded, the humility in her eyes not dimming the strength of her purpose. I want to show these young ones that true service isn't about glory. It's about doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It's about choosing sacrifice over recognition. That's what guardianship really means. And in that moment, something shifted across Falcon Ridge. The culture began to bend, slowly but surely, away from medals and headlines, toward something deeper, toward the idea that real valor is often quiet, unseen, and uncelebrated. Aurora Kaine's return forced them all to reevaluate what heroism meant, to recognize the ones who fight in the dark, who serve without accolades, whose names may never be etched in stone. Her story reminded them that the bravest acts are often invisible, and that sometimes the truest service lives in silence. Beside her, the Iron Spectre shimmered in the early morning light, pale and ghost-like. Aurora stood next to Leo, watching the young pilots gather with wide eyes and open hearts. "What now, Captain?" Leo asked softly. Aurora turned to the sunrise, then to the fresh faces looking up at her. "Now we teach. Now we build. The sky will always need its guardians," she said, her voice calm and resolute. "And some ghosts were never meant to stay buried. Heroism, we use the word so easily. We tie it to medals, to speeches, to names etched into marble. But maybe real heroism lives in the spaces we overlook, in the quiet moments of sacrifice, in the choices made without applause, in the hands that keep working long after the lights fade." Captain Aurora Kaine's return isn't just a story, it's a reminder that the most profound acts of courage often go unseen, that service in its purest form asks for nothing, and that the world is guarded not just by those we celebrate, but by those who walk in silence, watching, protecting, enduring, so the rest of us don't have to. She puts others before herself, quietly and consistently, every single day. No spotlight, no applause, just a steady, unwavering presence. These are the silent protectors woven into the very fabric of our communities. They're the ones we often pass by without realizing the strength they carry. Aurora's journey reminds us that true honor doesn't always come wrapped in medals or public ceremonies. Sometimes it's found in the small, unseen choices, choosing what's right, especially when no one is watching. In a world that increasingly values recognition before service, this lesson couldn't be more vital. The quiet acts of kindness, protection, and sacrifice, done without fanfare, are what truly define greatness. Aurora's return urges us to pause and reflect. What does it really mean to serve? To protect? To stand by someone, not for credit, but because it's the right thing to do? Now we'd love to hear your voice. Who is that quiet hero in your life? That person who gives without needing thanks, who protects without demanding praise. Share their story in the comments, because their example has the power to move and inspire others. Let's make sure they don't go unseen. And if Aurora's journey stirred something in you, if it reminded you of what real service looks like, please give this video a like, subscribe, and stay with us. We're committed to continuing these stories, to honoring the selfless ones who walk beside us quietly until the moment the world truly needs them. Thank you for spending this time with us. And remember, some heroes walk among us, unseen, unheard, but always ready.